Okay, we'll call the meeting to order now. And this is a different form of meeting for us, but I suspect it'll be the way we will be meeting for quite a while. So we're going to have to learn how to do it well. And we can't really begin tonight's meeting without noting the turmoil that's going on in our country. You know, we've all been affected by the COVID-19 virus. We've been affected, and some of us among us, I know, have lost friends and family. And the video of George Floyd, which I think is one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen in my life. We watched him being murdered in front of us, and it's haunting. And it is leading to a worldwide protest of American policies on racism and police brutality. But I think in honor of the COVID-19 victims and in honor of George Floyd, I ask that we observe a moment of silence in their memory. Okay, so we've taken care of that. And we are going to begin with a presentation after I welcome all of you, but we will be having a presentation on fake news, how to deal with it, by Gail B. McDonald and Cara Mcdonald.
I've known Gail McDonald for many years now, as we have worked together on many Democratic campaigns. Gail is a University of Connecticut journalism faculty member and a part-time copy editor for our local newspaper, the New London Day. She's also written 2 books, the first being Morton F. Plant and the Connecticut Shoreline, Philanthropy in the Gilded Age. And her second book, which is just published only a few months ago, is The Hidden History of Mystic and Stonington. Before joining the UConn Journalism Department full-time in August of 2008, Gail worked as both a journalist and journalism instructor, since graduating herself as an undergraduate from UConn. She was a staff writer for the New London Day, a freelance journalist for numerous publications, including the New York Times, a public relations director, and an adjunct professor. She obtained her master's degree via a fellowship at the American University in Washington, D.C. So we welcome you, Gail, and thank you very much for being here.
Okay, and along with Gail, our second presenter is her daughter, Cara Mcdonald, who after graduating college became a staff assistant for Congressman Joe Courtney's office in DC, and then pursued a career in social media, marketing for small businesses and nonprofits, both here and abroad. And she is currently serving as the Enrichment and Communications Coordinator for East Shore Region Adult Continuing Education and Brantford. And she also works as independently as a social media consultant. So we have 2 good people in our field for our presentation.
Thank you, Gail.
Hi everybody. So Liz made me sound pretty important. So I don't feel all that important usually, but I have been a journalist for a long time and now a journalism professor at UConn. And journalists are trained to be skeptical. And when I was a UConn student myself many years ago, my professors always told us that this kind of cliche about even if your mother tells you she loves you, you're supposed to check it out. So we are supposed to be verifying information and looking for evidence about information. And it's not that journalists don't make mistakes. They make mistakes every day, and sometimes spectacular mistakes that we get called on, which is too bad. But the difference between journalists and a lot of other people who are out there putting information out for us to see right now is that we are trained and know about how to verify information. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to try to be brief because I've been on enough of these Zoom meetings to know that it's easy to lose interest pretty quickly. Also my daughter has lots of interesting things to say about from the social media aspect. But the first thing I wanted to do, I realized very quickly when I was preparing this yesterday for Liz, was that fake news, the whole terminology of fake news, which is a very new term, it's only come in because of who we elected to president in 2016, whose name I won't even say here. What is fake news? I think it's really important that we define it. And fake news really has been around for a long time if you look at it in its broadest way. And it includes propaganda, it includes lies that are purposely put out into the public sphere. It can include political agitation, misinformation, disinformation, and now in the digital age, clickbait. So I'm going to focus mostly on social media because that is where we know that most people these days get their news. So a lot of the information on social media is great and truthful, but an awful lot of it is not. And there's probably more that is not than is. So the basic bottom line of my message here is that everybody should, especially in the digital age now, and because we are all so glued to social media, we all need to be skeptical about every piece of information that we see on social. And that doesn't matter whether it's being put out there by your best friend, by your mom, or somebody who you're very close to. And I especially warn you about information that is in line with your worldview, because that's how they get us and we spread misinformation because they can target us. And my daughter's going to be talking a lot more about that, of how they can target on social. But we can be very precisely targeted, and they know our likes and dislikes, and they're going to show us things that we are going to agree with. And so we're going to, oh, that's great. Let me share this. But everybody needs to check out and learn how to check out information. So information verification and a little bit of news literacy or media literacy is important for everybody to have now. You know, long gone are the days when we can turn on Walter Cronkite and that's a very trusted news source and everybody can listen to him and believe what he says and know that it's verified and trustworthy. That's no longer the case. So I wanted to show you a few things in a little bit, but one of the things when you're trying to sort of look at something that you're seeing on, say, your Facebook page, is you need to find out who was the originator of the information. And it's often not the person who is passing it along. So you need to be able to get into the account and really see how was it passed along and how many hands did it go through. And then think about where it originated, because proximity is important. And so the further away that you get from wherever an event was occurring, the less likely it is to be trustworthy. When you're looking at websites or looking at who puts out a social media meme or has a social media account, you need to go into the website, that agency's website, and really look at their information. Do they have a bricks and mortar address? who founded the organization, who funds the organization. Look under things like About Us. Look at the credentials of the sources. You know, what is the background? So I'm going to throw out an example. And this is already old because this is something I just got like 2 days ago, but it's already really old because of everything that has happened since then. Many of you have probably heard this or seen on your social media accounts, this story about somebody that they're being called, who's being dubbed the Umbrella Man, who showed up at the St. Paul, Minnesota protests and was especially destructive. And he was a white man, dressed all in black and carrying an umbrella and wearing a gas mask. And he was breaking windows and causing a lot of destruction. And it passed around social media a lot. I mean, it went viral. And then the first day when I Googled and started with Google to try to verify the information, because it quickly was being passed around that he was a St. Paul police officer. And if you Googled Umbrella Man that day, everything that came up was really from other social media accounts. It was from Reddit. It was from people's personal blogs. And if you look down on who was running this story, there was no legitimate media sites that were running it. The Washington Post wasn't running it, the New York Times. And again, thinking about proximity, one of the where I've been looking for the most reliable information about a lot of the protests in Minnesota has been the Minneapolis Tribune. Or Minneapolis Star, I'm sorry, Minneapolis Star. It's the long-standing newspaper of record in Minneapolis, and they didn't have it either. So the only site that had it was something called Oakland News Now. That was the only news site that purports to be a news site that I could find that had this story. And if you looked at their About Us section, you quickly saw that Oakland News Now from Oakland, California, far away from St. Paul, Minnesota, is operated by people none of whom have a background in journalism. And it's basically a blog. And that's not to say that a lot of this firsthand account, blog information, information that comes out of social media isn't very important and isn't accurate sometimes, or a lot of times. But we as journalists need to dig in and verify this information before we publish it. And that's what I think that everybody really should be doing right now. So now, today, I again Googled Umbrella Man, and I did start to come up with a lot of news sites that were running a story about it. But what the news sites were saying, and these were the Minneapolis Star and the Washington Post and some others, what they were saying is that here are the stories that are out there about this person, and nobody has really been able to verify who he actually is. One of the areas that get most often misconstrued are photographs, images. And so it's a really simple thing to learn how to verify photographs. And so you should know about sites like Google Images. And I'll show you an example in a minute, I hope it works. And there are other sites like TinEye and Google Earth. And then there's sites like mapchecking.com where you can double check and verify claims about, say, crowd sizes. So when, for example, the man who we elected president in 2016, claimed that so many people were at his inauguration. If you go to mapchecking.com, it will use mathematical equations, and it's a fairly simple thing to follow through. And you can verify whether what he said was correct by looking at a photograph from that day and using the algorithms and the mathematical examples that are, or calculations that are in there. So I'm going to try to show you really quick, and just to show you how simple it is to check a image. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so on Google, if you just go to Google Images, which is up in the right-hand corner, and I'm going to find a, I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to drag in a picture from my desktop. And this was a picture of an elephant that was being passed around social media, and it was supposed to be an elephant that broke into a bank and ruined the bank building. So all you have to do is drag and drop, and you can see right here, right away, right at the top, hoax alert, pick of elephant stealing $400,000. And again, go down the list, and there's tons of information that show that this was a hoax. Another image, another site that I want to show you is called TinEye. And this picture was being passed. Let me open the picture first so you can see it. Well, maybe. There it is. So this picture was being passed around the internet a while back, and it was supposed to be showing a military exercise that was being done during an eclipse. So if I drag and drop that one into TinEye, and it'll take a second. So and then so I sorted this by the oldest, and right away, so that what TinEye does is it searches for similar images across lots of different sites. And so it came up with 41.5 billion images it searched, and it came up with 151 times that it found this particular image or something very like it. And if you sort by the oldest, you'll see that originally this picture had none of the parachutes or the military paraphernalia in front of it, which shows you right away that that it's basically BS and it was doctored. That doesn't mean that a lot of people didn't believe it and pass it around. There are a few other sites that you should know about if you don't already. I know a lot of you probably do know about these sites, but Snopes.com is a great site. There are a lot of people now who claim that it's got a right-wing, it's a anti-right-wing site, but it is absolutely not. It's completely, you know, unbiased. And they used to just check out urban legends, but now they do everything. And anything that's being passed around the internet a lot, you can usually find here. So for example, you know, already we're seeing fact checking of some of the issues that are coming up in relation to George Floyd. PolitiFact is another one that is really, really useful, especially during campaigns. And now there are many, many states that have their own PolitiFact sites. Now this I'm showing you shows that they fact checked that supposed documentary called Plandemic that claims that the coronavirus is a hoax, which is absolute crock of baloney. And it goes down, they're very transparent about how they do their work. Here's all their state editions. It talks about how they process and go through the process of fact checking. And it's a really great site. So there's a bunch of other things that I'm going to give Liz a list of, and that she can share with you. And one of them, for example, is a quiz that I think is kind of cool. I took it myself and I didn't do so well with it. But it really shows you how to be a kind of detective when you're looking at photographs and trying to determine whether they're for real or not. So I'm gonna pass that along to Liz, and she can share it with you later. So again, I really think that it's upon all of us to learn how to verify and check out information a little bit, to really resist that urge to just hit share on everything that we see that comes across our Facebook pages. And again, even if it's something that you agree with, that aligns with your worldview, the purposes behind it could be nefarious. And so you should be careful. And thank you. And I'll be happy to answer questions.
Well, hello, everyone. And thank you so much to Liz and the rest of the folks at the Connecticut Federation of Democratic Women for inviting me to this Zoom call. Again, my name is Cara Mcdonald. That's me. I live in Middletown, Connecticut with my fiance and my Labradoodle, the latter of which really enjoys interrupting these conference calls. So I apologize in advance if he does that. So I'm 31 years old, placing me firmly in the millennial generation. So social media was coming of age around the same time as I was. And as my mom can attest, tween Cara enjoyed clogging up the family's dial-up internet, chatting with her friends on AOL Instant Messenger. This site allowed users to chat with friends and strangers around the world in real time in both private messages and chat rooms based on various subjects of interest. AIM, as it was referred to, was one of the first social media platforms. The world has changed a lot since the late 1990s, and technology has played a critical role. I'm willing to bet that the vast majority of the people on this call didn't own a cell phone at that time. And if you did, it certainly didn't look anything like the devices we carry around in our pockets today. According to a fact sheet put out by Pew, over 96% of all Americans have a mobile phone, and over 81% of those are smartphones. So this means that music, entertainment, and information are almost always accessible. And as the popularity of social media and the accessibility to technology increased, so did the need for marketers and political operatives to punch up their copy. Content really needed to grab your attention quickly because it was competing in a sea of ever-growing information for clicks. And this is problematic for many reasons, one of which is the gross oversimplification of complex issues. Reducing a news story to one headline or 280 characters really dilutes any nuance that might exist and simplifies its importance. In fact, when I first started working as a social media marketer, Facebook allowed you to edit the copy that appeared on what are called link previews. This is an example of a link preview. We actually had the ability to change the headlines on the news stories, just like the one I circled here. Move fast and break things. This was Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg's motto, and truly the embodiment for the culture of his company. Today, his platform boasts over 2.6 billion active users. And when it comes to turning a profit and, well, breaking things, Facebook has been wildly successful. Now, I'm going to give a couple examples of the absolutely devastating consequences of such a business model, but first, I'd like to take a little step back and explain how Facebook works. Social media websites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube use artificial intelligence to determine the content that will keep you on their sites the longest. These platforms make money off advertising, so the longer you stay scrolling, viewing, clicking, commenting, and sharing, the more money they make. Facebook in particular tracks everything you and your friends do on its site, so it can show you ads that are perfectly tailored to your interests. I've run more Facebook ad campaigns than I can count. And I can tell you from a marketer's perspective, it's an incredibly powerful tool. When I'm creating an ad, my first step is building an audience, the audience that I'd like my ad to be shown to. I can target Facebook users by geographic area, age, interests, and behaviors. And I can get very specific. For example, I can set up an ad to be shown only to women between the ages of 30 and 36, living within a 20-mile radius of Middletown, Connecticut, who graduated from college, is a parent of a 3 to 5-year-old child, is likely to engage with liberal political content, likes seafood, and whose anniversary is within 61 to 90 days. So for small businesses and marketing professionals like myself, this precision allows us to run highly effective advertising campaigns for a fraction of the cost of traditional media. But there are huge implications for privacy and politics. I'll start with an example that we're all aware of: the Russian interference with the 2016 United States presidential election. By Facebook's own admission, fake accounts operating from Russia purchased $100,000 worth of political ads between 2015 and 2016. They created Facebook events for rallies in several states, purchased ads that promoted more radical candidates, and exploited racial tensions. And because Facebook only shows you the content that they know you want to see, users become further insulated from dissenting viewpoints and opinions. Another disturbing example of fake news in Facebook occurred in the 2016 election in the Philippines. Rodrigo Duterte emerged victorious. Facebook's Internet.org initiative was instrumental in his election. Internet.org provided free internet access to mobile phone users in 18 developing countries. However, the internet wasn't truly free because people were only given access to a small number of websites, Facebook, of course, being one of them. Facebook flew 3 of its employees to the Philippines to train candidates on how to run political campaigns on their platform. And Duterte seized this powerful tool, using it to spread disinformation. He created fake accounts of people posing as enthusiastic supporters who would aggressively troll anyone who dared to dissent. He also created fake endorsements like this one. Even the Pope admires Duterte. I can tell you he most certainly did not. And since Duterte was elected, news organizations estimate that Duterte's secret police and military have killed over 12,000 people. So, revisiting Facebook's early motto, move fast and break things. It was this mindset exactly that encouraged his employees to focus on short-term goals and to push out new features to drive user engagement without fully considering the potential long-term impacts. But Facebook was far from the only short-sighted social media giant. YouTube, which is owned by Google, ignored numerous potential problems with their algorithm. And again, the goal of these sites is to keep people engaged for as long as they can so they can make money on advertising. YouTube's AI learned that showing users increasingly provocative videos did just this. And this is how fringe media outlets were made accessible to mainstream audiences. There's no better example of this than InfoWars with Alex Jones. You might know Mr. Jones for his appearance on Piers Morgan's TV show, where he screamed about an imminent civil war that would commence if the government came for his guns, or his persistent claims that the Sandy Hook massacre was fabricated. This is something I pulled from his site. For decades, Alex Jones has consistently used fake news from other fringe media outlets to promote racist and anti-governmental conspiracies. His broadcasts regularly feature conversations with Holocaust deniers, anti-vaxxers, opponents of climate change, and fascist activists. He's inspired countless acts of violence, yet YouTube recommended his InfoWars channel to viewers 15 billion times before finally banning him in August of 2018. Recently, social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube have taken steps to curb the spread of false information. They've deplatformed or banned people like Alex Jones, put stricter restrictions in place for advertisers, and even fact-checked the president. But in my opinion, the damage has already been done. So what can we do? Like a highly contagious disease, misinformation can spread rapidly with ease. So like my mom said, I also urge you to be skeptical. Even memes of puppies begging for you to like their page might not be as innocent as they appear. Just below the About section, on the right side of a page, Facebook has a page transparency function. And if you click on See More, you can view the page's history, a list of countries of those who manage the page, ads they're running, and any organization that might manage that page. Now, I pulled this cute meme from a Facebook page called the Cat Lovers Club. And when I dug a little bit into its history, I found out that the page was first called World of Warcraft Fans. So the purpose of the page changed dramatically. And when it was created, 22 of the 23 people who managed it were doing so from India. And I don't necessarily believe that this page in particular is doing anything nefarious, but it's really important to be able to do your own research, because these pages can be more influential than you might think, because they have millions of active fans. So I'm happy to take a pause there for questions, if you have any questions for my mom or I.
I see it's in the chat too. Could you repeat how you find out that page transparency? Where do you click?
Sure. So if you're looking at a Facebook business page, that's different from a Facebook group. On the right-hand side of the page, right under where it says About, you'll see something that says page transparency.
Thank you.
You should be able to
Really-
unmute. Thank you,
Yep.
Portia.
No, I don't necessarily have a question, but I just wanted to thank you both for, sharing all this tonight. I think it's really important. I'm 40 years old, and I remember the dial-up and some of those things as well. And it's interesting because I sometimes tend to forget where we are. And as I have adolescents who are young adolescents who are 17 and 14, they know more about the devices now than I do. And so as a parent, I'm trying to stay equal or greater with them to be able to understand what's going on and stay in the know. So it's nice to see, different things that maybe I took for granted that might be good ways to tell them how to fact check as well. So I do appreciate everything that you guys said today. So thank you.
Thank you, Portia. And then Lauren, you should be unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so it would be helpful to have a punch list because I spend a lot of time on social media. So when you set like the whole fact checking thing, just, give me 5 things. Like go here, like first of all, I never respond. I never like, I love you guys, but I never like anybody that I don't know. So my thing is to say, these are the 5 things you should do. Okay, you see this, right? Because we love animals, because I make movies, one fluffy bunny hopping over the, hopping in the yard is so much better than violence. So if you could just give us like a tip sheet to say when I'm serious, 5 things. To say, don't click here, don't do this, go here. I think that would help everybody. And it becomes like, like when you put on your seatbelt, you get in your car, you hook up your mobile device so we don't drive anymore because we're all sequestered. But the point is, you have your routine, right? You get in your car, you hook up your Bluetooth, put on your seatbelt. 5 things for us to do when we see stuff would be awesome.
Well, I would say I can think of things that you shouldn't do instead of that you should do. But first of all, don't automatically share things. Don't say, oh yeah, right on, I believe in this, let me share it. I would learn how to find out who the original originator of the information is. So understand that when you see things being shared or things being posted that come up on your timeline on Facebook, for example, they are not necessarily being coming from the person who posted them. I think we all understand that, but many of people cannot really take the next step, which is find out who it really was who shared it. And in addition to what my daughter was saying about looking at the page transparency, because that only pertains to business pages and pages that are set up for some kind of commercial purpose, and commercial defined in a really broad way. But also understand that a lot of sites that look like they're from individuals, that they're bots, okay? That many of these accounts on social media now are bots. And so they generate content, they look like they come from a person that you maybe think looks really nice, but they're not a real person at all. And they take images from the internet that are readily available of all of us these days, and they create accounts. They create, thousands, tens of thousands of accounts.
Hey, I have a second question. Does everyone on the call know what a bot is? I do, but does everyone know what that is?
Nobody can really answer because they're all muted.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Liz,
Yes.
does everyone know what a bot is?
Joyce doesn't know.
Okay.
So this is the time to ask. So I
What
will
is a bot?
ask, could you explain what a bot is? I know what it is, but
I'll let my daughter explain it. She can probably explain it better than I can. I mean, it's basically a fake account, but I'll let her explain it a little better.
thank you, Cara.
I mean, that pretty much sums it up. It's a computer generated fake account, and folks who are really, really crafty with like hacking and computer software can create many bots at a time. So I kind of focused on Facebook, but during the 2016 presidential election, there was a lot of activity on Twitter too. So there were all these bots, these fake people, fake accounts that were created that would automatically generate content. And there were so many of them acting at once that they had the power to sway what's known as like what's trending. So this made their messages get sent out to a much bigger audience than they would have if it was just a couple guys.
Okay, so let's just start really at the ground level. What does bots mean?
What?
Well, Lauren, if you know, go ahead and say it.
No, I'm just saying,
Oh.
my thing is, it's a fake account. I'm gonna Google it right now. I mean, I've been using it for so long, I don't even know what it means, but it's like,
Well, it probably
Social
is a
media.
derivative
Robot.
of robot.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, because I'm spending a lot of time helping people with technology, making their lives better, and because technology is here to help us, and you shouldn't be embarrassed if you can't figure it out, because it's not that hard, right? And so my thing is just to help all of us on this group, just before and I'm so thankful you guys are on here, because to just share and say, if you're not sure, don't,
Mm-hmm.
so
Well,
that's
one of the things I'm going to send along to Liz, actually, that she can share with you, talks about how to recognize bots. And one of the things that you have to do is basically look at how many times they tweet or they post on a given day. And if it's more than a human can do, then they're probably a bot, even though it looks like a person's face is in there in the profile.
thank you. I'm done. I'm good.
Thank you, Lauren. Are there any other questions? I will take this into gallery view, and if you're not sure, and if there are any people on the phone, we have a couple on the phone. If you'd like to ask questions, just unmute yourself and ask, please. And anybody else, if you're not, okay, Debbie has her hand up, but if anybody doesn't know how to do the hand up, you can raise your hand too. So I'll have Deb Dickey first, and then Bernadette.
One thing that I have picked up on more so lately is getting repeat friend requests. So what I do, I always go in and see if I am still friended with that person before I will accept another. And 9 times out of 10, I'm already friended. So I figure that's a fake account.
Yep. That's a
Yeah.
smart thing to do to verify it. It happens all the time that people's accounts get hacked into. And if you'd like to prevent that, a really easy thing that you can do, change your password regularly.
Oh.
And if you are going to like a cafe or someplace with open Wi-Fi, really be careful about the sites you're visiting, because it's very easy for somebody who's savvy to just steal your information.
Okay, next, we have Bernadette next.
Hi, I just want to thank the Connecticut Federation for a wonderful presentation. Gail and Cara, really, really well done. My biggest frustration is with like the president has been talking about Antifa, which is just total nonsense. Antifa has nothing to do. These are frustrated people that are standing up and, angry, haven't had work, and for a variety of reasons. I've watched the video footage. I've read a lot of the reports. How do we combat that type? He says it, then Bill Barr repeats it, and then Fox News is saying it, and before you know it, it's on my feed about George Floyd, that, oh, it was Antifa that's causing this. And how do we combat that? That's what I'd like to know. Do you have any suggestions? The Republicans tend to be very good about repeating the same thing over and over again. And of course, Democrats have very different ways of communicating messaging.
I think you kind of hit it right on the head. It does come down to messaging, and that does come from the top down, right?
Right.
But certainly being able to verify what is fake and what isn't is a good place to start. But that's a very complicated question. I think also voting and making sure that we get our fellow Democrats out to the polls makes a big, big difference.
Thank you. My sister, hi, Marcia, and you have a question? Hold on, let me cancel spotlight out.
Okay, can you
You're
hear me?
unmuted. Hi. Yes, nice background.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about the privacy situation in Facebook and probably Twitter. I've locked everything down to only show only me, never told a lot of things about myself in my abouts and information. But when you filter for ads, are you using my activity, or are you using what you find on my profile on Facebook?
I am using what Facebook finds both places. They track all of your clicks. They also actually, they track what your friends do too. And they can, it's actually a stronger indicator of behavior of what your best friends do.
Okay, so even though I don't allow anybody to see my friends, I leave my friend list, that doesn't make any difference because Facebook has it anyway?
It doesn't make any difference as far as Facebook ads go, but it does help protect your privacy from other individuals.
Okay.
So it doesn't do nothing. But
it doesn't do what I'm hoping it does.
No, as far as Facebook goes, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Good question. Thank you.
I wanted to know if you could also address how we can protect our privacy on Zoom as well, because there were some problems with Zoom, and they've just done an upgrade as of May 30th.
Make sure your software is updated.
Oh, my computer software.
Both Zoom and your computer software.
And the other thing, I do a lot of Zoom calls, probably 2 at least a day with different groups. And one of the things is to make sure you have your waiting room set up. We had a meeting last Wednesday, and the meeting was 40 minutes into the meeting, and all of a sudden I got like 15 requests to come in the meeting, none of which names I recognize. So I just moved them all. I did let them in because I was pretty sure they were Zoom bombers. And I did not get a single phone call or a complaint from anyone. So you can safeguard your meeting by knowing who's going to come. And, like Liz, we had to fill out a little form and register, so she knew who was getting the invitations. So setting up the waiting room is a triple guard against that. Update your software, set up your waiting room, make sure you know who's invited and who's coming.
But
I
then
hope
what
that's helpful.
happens with us being on the call and what we're speaking about? Does somebody else have access to this in Zoom itself?
No, it records, they only let you record a tiny bit to the cloud, but it goes into your own hard drive because it goes to your computer, your individual computer.
So now I've unmuted you. You're all set. I'm glad my sister was sitting next to you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm appreciating her notice. I'm going to show my ignorance because I don't know this Antifa. Would someone explain what is this a group of people I don't know the acronym. The first time I heard it was when the orange president mentioned it as the nasties. So obviously it's something he's got as a bug about, but I don't know what it is. And what can anybody explain, please?
Bernadette?
Antifa, A-N-T-I-F-A.
Yeah, it's originally came from anti-fascist. That's basically what the fascist, or however that word is pronounced. But basically, there was a small group in Oregon, and we're not exactly sure where they came from, but they came with black, covered faces, and they were fighting against the white supremacists and some of those individuals. It was a very small group, but they called themselves Antifa against being anti-fascist, fascist. And so Trump has created them to be the big leftist boogeymen, and that we are behind this. All of the destruction that's been going on, which is just not true. It's a lot of frustrated people that are home and out of work, and young people, and there's been pictures of a variety of people that are doing that. I don't think it's an organized sort of thing, but I call him the thug in the White House. I don't say his name because that's the best that I can do. The thug in the White House insists that that's who is perpetrating the violence. And so he is called in the military. I was watching CNN because I got an alert from our Facebook group locally, and she wanted to post that the U.S. military will be taking action on American citizens, protesters, if they don't abide by the curfew. So I turned off just in time to get into this meeting to see what was going on. But it's very, very scary times, and we really need to unite and figure out how we're going to fight against this evil administration. So I appreciate the tips that Gail and Cara have provided and everyone else. I hope that answers your question. Alita?
Yes, thank you.
If I can jump in a little bit, just say another thing about Antifa too. They also do a lot of community organizing. They're the ones who organize a lot of these types of rallies across the country. And they work with a lot of social services organizations as well.
Oh, okay.
And thank you, Cara, for answering in the chat, because there has been a question of if they were right or left wing.
No
So
problem,
you answered
yeah.
that they're left wing. Thank you. And Linda has, from Norwich, you can hopefully unmute shortly.
I
You
just
should be
wanted to add about
Thanks.
Antifa. My daughter, Heather Ruley, who's in the meeting tonight, and I went to Black Lives Matter march in Boston after Charlottesville. So that was almost 3 years ago. We were surrounded by Antifa members. There was no violence. There was nothing. It's not really organized. I think people self-identify themselves as being members of Antifa and show up. They usually wear face coverings, but now everybody does now. And I don't see them as a really violent group. I think maybe, of course, like with any of the protesters, there could be a few who become violent.
Thank you.
So, yes, we did that march, and I became very good friends with the leader of Black Lives Matter for Rhode Island. As a matter of fact, I've been invited to a meeting at 8 o'clock with them as well. And it goes along with the Antifa question, where I have been informed by a few different members of Black Lives Matter, different stories about Antifa. And I don't know if they are misinformed as well. but it has been brought up to me a few times that they have been prone to violence more so during the Black Lives Matter marches. And so that's coming directly from them. And they said that they're getting really upset with them because they're trying to do peaceful protests. And so since I'm heading into a meeting with them right now, I just wanted to let you know what I've been informed of.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And good luck. I'm glad
Thank
you're
you.
doing all of this. Very much so.
Thank you.
So do we have any other questions or comments? I'm going to go back to gallery and try to find any other hands coming up that I don't see. I'm now starting to look at chat again. Thank you very much for the reminder to look at chat. So, okay. Well, is it? Yeah. Let me just double check here. Great. So I want to thank Gail and Cara so much, and I think Lauren is right that what is our next step? I can't believe how much work journalists must have to do to fact check. This is unbelievable, the amount of work that has to be done for anybody just trying to write a story, you know, and get the truth out, the absolute truth, and all those layers you have to go through. So we all need to be doing that too, and respecting the good work that our professional journalists do out there, and for these good, reputable news sources. And they're not, well, I won't get into the whole thing about fake news. That's just a made up thing anyways, but it's just convenient for Trump. But so I appreciate it. And it is an ongoing story, it's an ongoing thing that we need to be very conscious of, and perhaps come back again, have, fake news, 102 course, as opposed to 101. And Lauren, I said, yes. And then, but I think for us individually, and as anything that we can do as members of the Federation of Democratic Women, is that we need to do what we learn. We need to be very, very vigilant about only passing on what best to our knowledge of what is true, and to correct the posts, which, as my sister and I know, our uncle from South Carolina just hits share on everything. And we spend more time fact checking, and we just put it in the comments, the fact check, that's it. So that not necessarily to change his mind, but anybody else looking at that post will see that this is what the truth is. So I would encourage people to do that as well. And I loved, Gail, the whole thing about the images. I had no idea. That was great. And Lauren has her hand up. Not unmuted yet.
Can you
There you
unmute
go.
me?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. I think it was Sting. Every breath you take, every move you make, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Shoot the video. We will not judge you. You're somewhere at a rally or doing something, take out your iPhone. There have been movies at Sundance that have won huge awards. Just take out your phone. We will help you decide whether you should post it or not, but video video killed the radio store. The point is, video is so powerful. So I think all the time, everywhere you go, where's your phone? Take a picture. And we're not judging what you take. And if you're not really sure, but I think of all the places I get invited to, and I'm just heading down the street, and I was in New York, oh my God, how many times before the COVID-19? And I just think, take out your phone. And if you're not really sure, we will help you. And I'm not saying in a bad way, I'm just saying these are moments. And Cara, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I think that's absolutely true. I mean, think about how these recent protests kicked off. It's because somebody shot a video with their cell phone. Without that, this would just be, people in the Black community certainly knew what was happening with police brutality, but now the rest of America does as well. So it's so important to show what's going on in your community, and that's a very easy way to do it.
Thank you. And Judy, were you wanting to speak? You had unmuted.
I was just going to ask, in a related social media phase, how do you feel about privacy when people have Siri and Alexa monitoring everything and answering your questions? And I'm wondering, where's that recorded and held after you have your little conversation with Alexa or Siri or any of those?
If anybody really thinks that we have privacy anymore in the digital age, you'd be really quickly shocked at how much information is out there about you. So, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be doing anything special. So yeah, every digital device that you use records information about you and is used, and all kinds of privacy controls that you put on. That'll help in some regards for some things, but no, I mean, one of the exercises I used to do with my students was to have them actually sort of find out as much information as they could about me. And, they found out a lot. And, nothing was bad, but they got pretty, and these were digital natives who were working on it, but they were pretty astounded at how much information you can find out about anybody. So it's, I don't know. You can, I mean, I'm up here in Vermont, actually, in our place in Vermont, and there are a lot of people up here who go off the grid. And so if you want to go off the grid, I think that's the only way that you're going to protect your privacy truly. If you are digitally connected, it's not going to happen.
Thank you.
So, and I'm just going to one more question. Did Barbara Bogue, did you want to?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you. Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are. Thanks.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you for all the information. My brother and I fight about stuff all the time. He's for the orange person, and I'm not. And we got into an argument last night where he was telling me that we haven't even hit like 50 or 60,000 COVID deaths. And then he says, okay, check your sources, go on CDC. And I went yesterday and I found where it said it was 104,000 last night, and I sent it to him. I haven't heard a word from him since. So it just shut him. I think it shut him up today. So I was kind of glad to hear all this. And I think that's what I'm going to do from now on.
Great.
I ask my grandkids to help me out when I need help because they know more than I do. They're pretty funny. But no, thank you very much. It's been very interesting listening.
Thank you. And I think let's have for the last person, Deb, you have your hand up.
I thought the privacy comment was very interesting because I have said to a few people, well, privacy is basically a thing of the past, and they get very annoyed with me. And, I said the best thing to do if you want to keep it private, don't even say it to anybody.
Yeah, right.
And one of the first things I'm going to do after this meeting, I think, is make my friends list private, because I think it's probably more fair to them, because I do get people who get very annoyed with what I say on Facebook.
So I just want to real quickly, there are a few things in the chat. I think all the questions have been asked that are in the chat. But one thing, yeah, we need more. Yeah, we do need more. Betsy Ritter, our president in the Southeastern Connecticut Federation of Democratic Women, says, let's suggest some more topics as we work for the election session, like how to fight back in the field. Good idea. And another from Sima, who does give we also need to be careful when we take the videos, without permission, that I guess people have been getting arrested for doing that. So I don't know if anybody knows anything more about that, but that's something to think about. That's a good point. Joyce, you have your hand up? So go ahead.
Yes. First of all, I wanted to say that this is a wonderful, wonderful conversation. The information is really, really good. And I think if we can start to come up with some ways moving forward in reference to the election, how we can get the information out there to the communities about voting, the absentee ballots, how you can take a picture of that serial number on your absentee ballot, call it into your voter registration after the election and make sure it was counted. Because if we're doing the absentee ballots and if we're going to do by mail, it's going to be a lot of trickery out there. But maybe we could get together and have some suggestions how we can get the information out there to our communities, how to be sophisticated on voting if it's by mail and if there are parties who want to do absentee ballot. I myself am going to tell everybody to put your mask on and stand as long as as long as they have to stand to go in the precinct to vote. But there are going to be those who are not going to be comfortable, probably in November. But maybe we could have another conference regarding different unique ways to convince, mobilize, and encourage voting.
Yes, that's an excellent idea, and that will segue into some information we're giving at the business part of this meeting as well.
Okay.
So we do need to wrap this up. So Lauren, I think maybe wanted to say one more thing.
Okay, so I'm on my third documentary film. When you're in a public place by state, you're in a public gathering, okay? That is the whole thing of having permission to film somebody. I'm not in your place of business. I can share that by state, you can go by state. So if you are at a public gathering, it's okay to film anything, and then but I just want to say, like, having the footage and then figuring it out is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Not having any footage is a bad problem to have. So I'm signing out. Bye.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gail and Cara. Thank you for all of our friends who joined us from other states, as well as friends within Connecticut. If you are not an actual member, if you would like to become a member, contact me. That's not a problem.